What happens when old-school political wealth collides with futuristic tech money? Because when Donald Trump reportedly reacted with surprise to the scale and background of Elon Musk's family wealth, it wasn't just gossip. It symbolized a deeper clash between two very different ideas of power. Since Trump's rise was built on real estate towers, luxury branding, and media dominance rooted in visible assets like hotels and skyscrapers, while Musk's stories tied engineering, innovation, and global industry powered by factories, code, satellites, and electric vehicles. And what caught Trump's attention wasn't only Musk's current fortune, but the foundation behind it, including early exposure to international business and technical environments that shaped Musk's worldview long before fame, which contrasted sharply with Trump's inheritance of a domestic property empire that grew through licensing and branding, creating a moment where traditional wealth met futuristic influence, and where concrete and steel were suddenly compared to algorithms and rockets. And this comparison made headlines because it reflected a shift in how society defines dominance. Where once the richest men owned cities and casinos, now they own platforms and infrastructure that run daily life, from transportation to communication to space exploration. And in this new world, Musk represents a form of power that cannot be photographed as easily as a gold-plated lobby, but can be felt through factories, satellites, and electric grids. And that difference alone helps explain why Trump's reaction resonated so strongly with audiences. Because it felt like a public acknowledgement that the rules of wealth have changed, that owning buildings is no longer enough when owning systems may matter more. And as analysts discussed the moment, many pointed out that Trump built an empire by mastering public attention and turning his name into a product, while Musk built his by mastering technology and turning innovation into influence. And these two paths reveal different philosophies, one focused on image and negotiation, the other on invention and disruption. And when Trump appeared surprised by Musk's background, it wasn't just curiosity, but recognition that tech wealth now competes with and sometimes surpasses political and property-based fortunes, showing that power today can come from code as much as from concrete. And this realization also touches a broader cultural nerve because it mirrors how everyday life has changed, where digital platforms shape opinions, electric vehicles reshape industries, and private companies challenge governments in areas once considered untouchable, such as space travel and global communications. And in that sense, Musk's family wealth story is less about money and more about access to education, to technology, and to global networks that allowed ideas to turn into industries. And when Trump compared that background to his own, it highlighted two different Americas, one built on inherited land and branding, the other on international exposure and technical ambition. And this contrast is why the public found the moment so fascinating, because it wasn't just about two billionaires, but about two eras colliding, the age of property moguls and the age of tech visionaries. And as media discussions grew, some saw Trump's reaction as admiration, others as rivalry, and others as a reminder that wealth itself is evolving from something you can see into something that quietly controls infrastructure. And this evolution raises an important question about the future of power, whether tomorrow's leaders will be those who command armies and politics, or those who design systems that everyone depends on. And in that context, Musk's fortune represents more than personal success. It represents a blueprint for a new kind of influence that stretches beyond borders and beyond governments, while Trump's wealth represents a legacy model built on visibility and negotiation within a national framework. And when these two worlds meet, they expose how influence is shifting away from traditional institutions toward innovators who build the tools society relies on. And this shift also explains why Trump's surprise felt symbolic, as if a figure from the past generation was staring into the future and realizing that the scoreboard had changed. That wealth is no longer measured only in land and hotels, but in patents, factories, and networks that shape how humans move, communicate, and even imagine their destiny beyond Earth. And as the story circulated online, it sparked debate about whether tech billionaires now wield more power than presidents, whether innovation has replaced politics as the ultimate driver of change, and whether society prepared for a world where unelected figures shape infrastructure more than governments do. And through that lens, Trump's reaction becomes more than personal. It becomes a cultural moment, capturing the transition from old money to new power, from towers to technology, from national empires to global systems. And in the end, what shocked Trump may not have been the number attached to Musk's name, but what that number represents. a shift in how dominance is built and maintained, a reminder that the future belongs not just to those who own the past, but to those who design what comes next. And as these two titans continue to influence politics, markets, and public opinion, their contrast offers a clear picture of how wealth itself is transformed, from something you could touch and brand into something you rely on every day without seeing, proving that in the modern age, power is no longer only about what you possess, but about what you control. And control now lies in the systems that move the world. As the conversation around their contrasting fortunes continued to grow, it became clear that this story wasn't really about shock at all, but about perspective. Donald Trump's surprise reflected a worldview shaped by decades in property, branding, and political theater, where wealth is visible and measured in landmarks people can point to and say, that belongs to him. Elon Musk's wealth, by contrast, feels almost invisible in daily life, even though it shapes it constantly, moving people in electric cars, connecting remote areas through satellites, and redefining what private companies can achieve in fields once dominated by governments. This difference creates a strange psychological gap, where Musk's influence can feel abstract while Trump's feels tangible, and yet the abstract may now be more powerful than the tangible. What truly fascinated observers was how this moment revealed the changing ladder of success. In previous generations, ambition pointed toward real estate, oil, or heavy industry. Today, ambition points toward technology, artificial intelligence, and space systems. Musk's family background and early exposure to engineering ideas symbolize that shift. Trump's rise through inherited real estate and aggressive branding symbolizes the older model of power, one built through negotiation, publicity, and physical assets. Their contrast shows that wealth no longer follows a single path. It multiplies through innovation as much as through ownership. There is also a cultural angle to this story. Trump's brand has always been about personal image and dominance in public spaces. Musk's brand is about disruption and the promise of the future. One thrives on attention. The other thrives on progress narratives. When Trump appeared stunned by Musk's family wealth, it was as if two different definitions of success collided in real time. One definition says success means being known. The other says success means building what the world will depend on next. This is why the public reacted so strongly. People are no longer just fascinated by rich individuals. They are fascinated by what kind of world those individuals represent. Trump represents the era of deal-making and spectacle. Musk represents the era of algorithms and automation. One speaks the language of politics and media. The other speaks the language of engineering and long-term vision. And when those languages meet, confusion is inevitable because they measure value differently in many ways. This story is also about fear and curiosity. Fear that traditional power is fading. Curiosity about what replaces it. Trump's reaction symbolized that tension. It wasn't only about money. It was about relevance. It was about recognizing that influence no longer flows only through governments or famous names, but through companies that quietly build the systems everyone uses. Transportation, communication, and even exploration beyond Earth are increasingly shaped by private innovators rather than public institutions. And that leaves us with a bigger question than who is richer. It asks who truly shapes the future. Is it the politician who commands crowds and headlines, or the technologist who designs the tools behind daily life? Is power louder when it is spoken or when it is coded? This story forces us to confront how wealth has evolved from something that dominates skylines into something that dominates networks in the end. Trump being shocked by Musk's family wealth is less important than what that shock represents. It marks a transition point between two eras of dominance. One built on property and publicity. The other built on innovation and infrastructure. And as society moves forward, it may discover that the most powerful fortunes are no longer the ones we see, but the ones we depend on without noticing the as you think about this clash between old-style billionaires and modern tech titans. Ask yourself which kind of power will matter more in the next 20 years. The kind that owns buildings or the kind that builds systems? The kind that controls attention or the kind that controls technology? Because the future may already be answering that question for us. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden meaning behind billionaire rivalries and the evolution of wealth, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who loves untold power stories, and comment below on which model of success you think will dominate the future. Don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating stories about global elites, Secret Fortunes and the Forces Shaping Tomorrow.